Welcome to the programme.
Hello, Claire.
People are starving to death. Children are starving to death. Who's to blame?
There is a severe problem of distribution of the aid that has already entered Gaza. Right now, as we speak, there are 800 trucks of aid sitting at the Kerem Shalom crossing inside the Gaza Strip that UN agencies have not distributed. And Israel is urging those agencies to get a move on, not let the aid rot in the sun. Pick up the aid, coordinate with Israel, and get the food to the people who need it, while making sure that Hamas can't steal it.
Right, so you say it's nothing to do with Israel, it's nothing to do with the new way that you run these kind of militarized aid distribution points. It's all on the aid agencies.
There are two primary ways that aid is getting into Gaza right now. One is through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an American initiative that is trying to distribute aid directly to people, mostly in distribution facilities in the south of Gaza. And the other is through the existing UN mechanism. The fact is, Israel has allowed more aid into Gaza than the UN agencies have been able to pick up. And that aid is sitting there and rotting in the sun. According to Fox News, Israel has offered those agencies 5 different routes to get the aid to the people in Gaza. It's also offered IDF escorts to make sure that the aid gets there safely. But the UN agencies have refused those routes. They've refused the IDF escorts. They're in fact demanding Hamas police protection. And so the aid isn't getting there.
Well, you can understand why they fear for the safety of their workers. Over 1,000 people have died, women and children included, just queuing for aid. It is not a safe situation, is it?
That is not true, that 1,000 people have died queuing for aid. That number refers to claims of fire on the perimeter of aid sites when people arrived out of hours, often agitated by Hamas, trying to provoke stampedes. There are no cases of people who have been queuing for aid. The IDF does not use live fire at people as a form of crowd control. That's not true. But I understand the security risks, absolutely, for aid agencies trying to operate inside an active war zone where Hamas fighters are still hiding in their tunnels. Ultimately, there will be no improvement in the humanitarian situation until there is a ceasefire. And then ultimately, I would like to complete this point. Ultimately, it is impossible to improve the humanitarian situation until there is a ceasefire and ultimately until the Hamas regime is removed from power.
However, these people have died.
It's especially distressing.
However, these people have died.
It is especially distressing, if I may finish this point, that Israel has said yes to the ceasefire proposal on the table in Doha, and Hamas has continued to pile on obstacles to a ceasefire. What we need now is pressure on Hamas to accept the ceasefire proposal on the table so that we can get hostages out and aid into Gaza on a scale that the failing UN mechanisms can truly distribute.
Okay, however these people have died, to go back to that point, they have still died in aid areas, aid collection point areas controlled by Israel, controlled by the IDF. On Sunday, 67 dead, waiting for UN aid lorries in northern Gaza. The day before, 39 Palestinians seeking food killed near 2 aid distribution centres. 20th of July, 21 people died during a crush. 10 people, including 6 children, killed in an airstrike on the 13th of July. 24 people killed by Israeli fire near a southern aid site on the 12th of July. 11th of July, 15 dead, including 8 children. Now, this is on your watch. You control the Israeli authorities, of which you were a former member. They control the operation of these sites, and this is an abject failure to protect these people's lives, isn't it? You're supposed to be helping them, not killing them.
This comes, of course, with the usual disclaimer that these are numbers being provided by the Hamas authorities in Gaza, which have not been verified independently. And so we have only Hamas's word to take from them. And from my conversations with officials, those numbers are vastly inflated.
And when you had those conversations, how many do they say? So what are the official figures from the Israeli side?
I'm not aware of official figures. I think we have to, with some humility, say that in the context of the chaos of a war zone, no one knows the exact numbers, but the assessment is those are vastly exaggerated by Hamas. And many of those incidents were where Hamas deliberately provoked stampedes, deliberately brought people out of hours, sent them in the direction of IDF soldiers, who I think we can be honest and say are not trained and are not equipped to be dealing with the sort of crowd control measures that are required.
Yeah.
But what Israel is trying to do through the Gaza humanitarian humanitarian foundation system, for the first time, is to try to create a balance between the humanitarian needs of the population and the security need to make sure that Hamas is not able to get its hands on aid.
Right.
Because
well, it's failing. I think we can all agree that it's failing. I want to play you this clip. We were talking a few minutes ago to Moazzam Malik, CEO of Save the Children, and you say it's on the aid agencies. This is why it's sitting on the other side of the border. What it's not getting through. This is what he had to say when he was asked about the collection bottleneck that the Israeli authorities say is behind the problem of getting aid to the people who need it.
No, I don't. And, it's important to note that 86% of the Gaza Strip is now covered by Israeli no-go areas or evacuation zones. So the Israeli authorities, the IDF, is in complete control of this territory. Access, movement is controlled by the Israeli authorities. What goes in is controlled by the Israeli authorities. The ability to go and pick up trucks and distribute them is controlled by the Israeli authorities. They control this territory right now. They control the fate of these 2 million people. In terms of what we need to turn the situation around, it's entirely clear. We need an immediate and definitive ceasefire. We need humanitarian access so that stuff can move and be distributed through the UN system. And actually, we need an end to the occupation.
There you go. His point is that it is Israel that controls the in points and the out points. 86% of the Gaza Strip is covered by no-go areas and evacuation zones. What goes in and out is controlled by Israel. You could sort this out in an instant, couldn't you?
He is correct that Israel has managed to claw most of the Gaza Strip from the control of the Hamas regime, and that is how Israel is in a position to offer the UN agencies 5 separate routes to deliver the aid. It's how Israel is in a position to offer IDF escorts to make sure that the aid makes it safely. But Israel cannot force the UN to shift that aid. If the UN refuses to take that route, if it refuses to accept the IDF escorts, there is only so much Israel can do when the agencies refuse to distribute the aid and prefer to let it rot in the sun. They need to get a move on, and instead of blaming Israel and finding a scapegoat, they need to deliver the aid that is already inside Gaza and work together with the authorities. But to your speaker's point, he is right. There is no way to improve the humanitarian situation until there is a ceasefire, and ultimately until the regime that started this war is removed from power.
So what you're saying is there is absolutely nothing. What you're saying is there's nothing that the Israeli government, the Israeli authorities, the IDF could do to change right now how they're delivering this aid. There's nothing is in your auspice of responsibility that you could change that would improve the situation. It's all on the aid agencies. Is that your point?
Israel is coordinating with the aid agencies and trying to offer all assistance it can. It is offering IDF escorts. It is offering to send soldiers to protect those aid trucks and make sure they reach their destination. And the UN is refusing. The UN prefers Hamas police protection, and it's the same protection that has allowed Hamas to siphon so much of the aid that has ended up fueling its machine and prolonging this war for far more than is necessary. But we need a ceasefire in order to improve the humanitarian situation. That is why Israel has said yes to the mediator's proposal, and Hamas is saying no. And the pressure now needs to be on the party that is refusing a ceasefire because, of course, cynically, it is an evil terrorist regime. It is benefiting from those images of suffering. Those images need to end with a ceasefire that Hamas needs to agree to that proposal on the table.
Final point, Mr. Levy. What could happen is that the Israeli government could allow journalists into the area, and we could stop having these circular interviews when I say this number of people have been killed at these collection points, and you come back and say, well, they're unverified figures. That's from the health organization run by Hamas. We could categorically understand exactly what is going on if there was transparency and if we had the clarity of independent reporting. Why won't Israel allow that to happen?
Well, of course, we're having another circular discussion where the BBC and other organizations will claim that their journalists on the ground are independent and reliable and good enough. And we claim that actually, no, they're controlled by Hamas or subordinate to Hamas, and they're not good enough. So we're having another circular discussion.
Okay, yeah, but we are doing what we can do with what you are allowing us to do.
I'll explain. The reason the Israeli government has provided for not allowing journalists to go freely in Gaza, and by the way, there is no war zone where journalists are able to walk freely in areas of intense combat, is the fear of exposing troop movements and having journalists between the feet of soldiers in an active war zone where they could get hurt and where Hamas could use those journalists as human shields. The Israeli Supreme Court accepted in a petition nearly 2 years ago the government's answer that the presence of journalists in Hamas-controlled territory and war zones would endanger IDF troop movements. Personally, I believe, given the amount of fake news that has emerged from Gaza, from complete fabrications to things that have been vastly exaggerated, Israel is paying a terrible price for that decision to protect its troops by not allowing independent access.
So you think independent
journalists.
Access would be the best idea going forward?
I think there is a delicate balance that Israel needs to strike, and its priority is, of course, the protection of our conscripts and reservists who've been ripped out from their ordinary lives and have been fighting inside Gaza to try to bring back the hostages and to bring down the terrorist regime that is promising to do October 7th again and again. Keeping our troops safe is a top priority.
I can guarantee you, if that change was made, the BBC would be more than happy to have its journalists, albeit safely, inside Gaza. And in fact, there's journalists, Western journalists in Syria right now, an incredibly difficult situation. So, Mr. Levy, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure as always.
Eylon Levy, there, former Israeli government spokesperson. Your views, welcome as ever. You can text us 850.